Well, everyone, thank you for joining us. This is our Navigating the Techscape panel. I'm pleased to intro Kara Swisher, and it's an absolute privilege to have a trailblazer in tech journalism and a fearless interviewer and one of the most influential voices in media today here. Kara is a graduate of Georgetown School of Foreign Service and has been covering the business of internet since 1994 and has shaped how we understand the intersection of technology, power, and society. She's a co-host of the widely popular Pivot podcast and the host of On with Kara Swisher, an editor at large at New York Magazine. She was also the co-founder of Recode, which became one of the most respected sources for tech news before being acquired by Vox Media. Earlier in her career, Kara was a columnist at the Wall Street Journal, where she wrote BoomTown, chronicling Silicon Valley's rise, and co-founded the All Things Digital Conference, which later evolved into the Code Conference, where she has interviewed just about every major tech leader from Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg. Beyond journalism, Kara is a best-selling author, with Burn Book, a tech love story, being her latest in a series of sharp, insightful books on the tech industry. She has also contributed to the New York Times, hosting the official Succession podcast for HBO, and even made an appearance in the show Silicon Valley. She has built a reputation as one of the toughest, most insightful interviewers in the industry, someone who holds the world's most powerful tech figures accountable while never shying away from tough conversations. And in case you don't recognize her immediately, just look for aviator sunglasses, which, yes, she wears indoors.
Ours is really bright. These are actually prescriptions, so I'm not trying to be rude. A little bit rude.
Well, thank you, Kara, and thank you, Drew. It's my pleasure to introduce someone who's been at the forefront of covering the startup world, venture capital, and the inner workings of Silicon Valley, Eric Newcomer. Eric is the founder of Newcomer, a widely respected independent media outlet focused on startups and venture capital, which he launched in 2020. Through his newsletter and podcast, he's become a go-to voice for candid and deeply reported insights on the industry, featuring some of the most influential features in tech. Before launching Newcomer, Eric cut his teeth as a reporter at The Information and later at Bloomberg, where he broke some of the most pivotal stories in tech. A graduate of Harvard College, where he studied philosophy and won awards for investigative journalism, Eric has remained committed to hard-hitting, independent reporting. In 2023, he co-hosted the Cerebral Valley AI Summit in San Francisco, an event that gathered top AI founders, investors, and engineers. With a sharp mind for tech trends and a fearless approach to journalism, Eric brings unmatched depth to this discussion and the future of startups and venture capital. Please join me in welcoming both Kara Swisher and Eric Newcomer.
Kara and Eric, tech's role in politics has seen a dramatic shift, from funding campaigns to shaping entire policy areas.
Yeah.
With figures like Peter Thiel, David Sachs, and Scott Kapoor.
Oh, sorry.
Having significant roles or influence in DC. How do you see this recent, more visual convergence of Silicon Valley and Washington, DC reshaping the tech ecosystem?
Do you start with that one?
Sure, yeah, I mean, it's terrifying, I guess. I mean, I love Silicon Valley. I believe in the venture capital industry. I think I was very hopeful that I would just get to cover money and deal making, and now we're in this, I feel like, very, very dark world. I mean, I don't think Silicon Valley has one unified view. I mean, there's certainly the Elon, Peter Thiel contingent who is deep in the White House, and I'm sort of deeply troubled by what they're doing so far and happy to talk about that more. But, you know, at the same time, I think, you know, as we've seen on some of the earlier panels, there is this moment of excitement around defense tech and sort of deregulation in crypto and deregulation in AI that will allow Silicon Valley to sort of go full bore into areas that it's excited about. But yeah, for a, I guess, deregulatory moment, government has never loomed larger in like the Silicon Valley story. So it's a very weird time to cover tech.
Yeah, I mean, I think deregulation would suggest there is regulation.
Right.
There isn't any. So they'd like less regulation than zero.
Right.
They would like help. They would like
the SEC just gave up on its Coinbase lawsuit too.
Right, exactly. They would like no oversight whatsoever because that's the way they like it. A couple of things. Look, it's really exciting what happened in Silicon Valley with the help of the US government, by the way. Let me make that crystal clear. Elon Musk wouldn't be here without the loan that they got from the Obama administration. Most tech, the internet was paid for by you, the taxpayers. They took advantage of it and did lots of things, but a lot of it was through subsidies and all kinds of things. So these are, as Scott Galloway, my partner, says, I don't use this term, but he used it, so I'm gonna just say it, which is they're welfare queens. They like take as much money from the government as possible, and now they're doing the same thing. And so I think I find it troubling for a couple of reasons what's happening. There's nothing wrong with reforming the government. There's nothing wrong with making it better. Government by nature becomes more bureaucratic and more difficult, more things to do. Anyone who runs a business, Eric and I are both entrepreneurs, knows how difficult that can be to get around things and rules. And we don't like them either. Some of them we do, some of them we don't. But this is a group of people who don't want any guardrails whatsoever, who don't want any kind of anybody telling them what to do. And the worst part now, unfortunately, is they think they know the best about every single thing, whether it's Ukraine, whether it's healthcare. Recently, Elon tweeted about cesarean sections, and I had one, and he can sit the fuck down as far as I'm concerned. So, and so he, he and others think they know everything about everything, and they're ignorant, and I wouldn't say incompetent, because they're not incompetent, but they think they can, because they are good in one thing, they're good in other things. They'll pontificate on issues they've never had any idea of, and they think everything fits in the same exact box. And so you can see whether it's, the smartest among them is Peter Thiel, I will say. He's quite brilliant in many ways, and has been thinking about these issues for a long time. So if I had to say anybody is more educated about this, two people would be Bill Gates and Peter Thiel, who spent time doing their homework. Peter came out a different way than Bill did. But they don't know what they're talking about. And the only reason we're listening to them is because they're rich, and that is it. That is why we're listening to them. Lots of people, and I'm thrilled if you put up rockets. I'm thrilled if you innovate cars and things like that, and they deserve credit in that area, although there's plenty of other people involved in both Tesla and Starlink who never get, if you notice, he's like Willy Wonka and everybody else is the Oompa Loompas, I guess. I don't understand that. But whatever, fine, successful at business operations, for sure. But I wouldn't, the fact that they're putting their hands all over the place is going to be a disaster for our country in many ways that I think we're not going to even understand. Even though absolutely government needs reformed, and there's possibly no way to do it but destroy it, and that is what they are not trying to build, they're trying to destroy in order to build the way they want it back.
Kara, yeah, to your point, sorry, were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to zoom out for a second. It's like we're both journalists who also opine. And I feel like, part of why I left Bloomberg in the first place was that I thought supporting Trump was unacceptable, and I hated having to pretend like I was a journalist who thought, oh, this is fine. And in some ways, I feel like that honesty with my readers has endeared me even to the Trump-supporting crowd. Because I think the worst thing journalists can do is sort of write these like objective stories where it's clear what side they're on. And so I just wanted, so to me, it's like, oh, I want to be writing for the most part about business and the functioning of venture capital, and then only, sometimes provide sort of a moral voice for the industry when it feels like, I have to. And I feel like my posture towards Trump has been like, I was against it, and I was like, this clearly is bad. I think you're going to get your faces ripped off. But if there was anyone I wanted influencing the Trump administration, it would be Silicon Valley. I don't know if we agree on that. But to me, if I had to choose between sort of neocons, Steve Bannon, or tech people.
Why is that the actual choice?
Well, it's Trump. Who is your fourth? What's the nice, beautiful fourth choice?
Regular citizens who spend their day earning
very,
money
very
and everything else.
optimistic.
So we're captive of rich people, oligarchs, and it is. They hate that word, but that's what's happening here.
But anyway,
why do they get access? And I don't know. A lot of people I know. The guy who I just got my house renovated, the contractor doesn't get to tell Trump about things. And I understand.
It's bad. I mean, to be clear, right? My final point was just, I feel like a month in, I've sort of given up the give them time to screw up, and then I'll start sort of whining about it. I mean, once you're sort of abandoning Ukraine, I feel like that's sort of a red line. I'm like, standing up for democracy is something journalists are
anyway.
supposed to be doing.
They
Anyway.
love crossing red lines.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to pivot here to kind of, we were talking about the administration. I'm going to direct this question to Kara. You appeared on CNN to discuss your take of Elon's recruiting of young men, just about Drew and I's age, to DOGE.
Are you working for DOGE?
I'm not.
Doggy, I call it doggy.
Doggy? Yeah.
As in bad.
I heard you say that.
Yeah, I'm not calling it DOGE anymore.
Okay, well, doggy then.
You can call it whatever you want.
All right.
Because unlike other people, if you want to call it the Gulf of Mexico, you can, or the Gulf of America. But you're not going to sue them or keep them out of the White House to do so. But go ahead.
All right. So, to that same vein, you said that some young people are willing to cross lines that adults won't, and the
Yeah.
arrogance is massive, and the arrogance is, and the ignorance is even bigger. What worries you about DOGE, and what steps do you think could be taken to make it an initiative that can achieve efficiency and bipartisan support and trust, if it can?
Look, every president has tried a different commission. They're a lot more polite than this one. They're not. This is one's going much further. And two things that I think are really troubling to me is lack of transparency of who they are and what they're doing, and take our word for it. I don't take their word for it. I don't know why I should have to take. I'm a taxpayer. Why should I have to take their word for who they are and what they're doing? They aren't doing anything transparently. You cannot find out who they are. Scott and I were talking about these young guys who are doing this, and a couple of women, and he said we were criminals for talking about them. Well, Mr. Free Speech, right? I think one of the issues is transparency. We don't know what they're doing, where they're going. They do their cloak of night thing. It's all performative for the narrative they're trying to do, is they're trying to scare people. They're doing it without, the second thing, they're doing it without intelligence on what's good to cut and what's bad. They just think cutting is good, and that is it. And Elon has said that and articulated. It's like, if we make a mistake, we'll fix it again, like the nuclear people they fired. Well, I don't know. I'm flying a plane next week. I'd really rather not have had you get rid of people who are competent. Like, why are you doing that? So I think the way they're doing it is haphazard and chaotic, which is the way they like it, because that's what they want. They think government is a startup, which it's not. The stakes are so much higher. So transparency, lack of accountability, no knowledge by our elected officials, right? These officials don't know what's happening here. And they're fine with it. Well, that's too bad, but we elected them, and they should have a say in what's happening. And their say shouldn't be, oh, whatever he does, I'm fine, I don't need to know about it. That's not what an elected official is supposed to do. And then do it legally. Like, it seems like they just declare things, and then they're going to do it no matter what. So it's essentially move fast and break things. But then when you go back to, if they broke them and it's illegal, they're broken. And to me, that's a real problem. I have a lot of other issues. It's also, the background checks on these kids are really bad. Like, one of them is really deep into a lot of, I mean, his name's Big Balls, but actually, which is fine. I'm fine with that. I'd like to see them first, but they, I'm guessing they're not. That's you have to call yourself. But I think the vetting has been pretty bad. He's very cybercrime adjacent, this kid. And so the vetting of these people who have their hands in our things and not knowing what access they have and then taking their word for it. I don't think they're telling the truth. That's my beginning stance is they're not telling the truth. That's it. Go ahead.
Do you want me to opine on that, or?
If you'd like.
No, I mean, I largely agree with what she's saying. The core thing that disturbs me the most is as a journalist, the sort of professed transparency when you dig into what Elon is actually disclosing. It's very sloppy in the reporting of how much they're cutting. You're seeing it is an interesting time for citizen journalism where you're seeing Twitter accounts, honestly, due diligence on the math of what they're doing and saying, oh, they're projecting out cuts that aren't really going to happen. They literally got an 8 million, 8 billion number mixed up that they seem to be trying to cover up. So just generally, the sort of sense that they declare that this is going to be the most transparent effort ever, and then it's very hard to get answers to know who's doing it, for them to be honest about how they're cutting. They don't really acknowledge that there have been past efforts to scrutinize government spending that are more transparent. As somebody who's in the business of transparency, it's very frustrating.
Steve Ballmer did that, remember? Steve Ballmer has a lot of the stuff they're relying on and stuff Steve Ballmer did very transparently. But the $8 million thing, come on. Like, it's $8 million when they said it was $8 billion. It's Gaza, Mozambique, and not Gaza condoms. Oh, we made a mistake. I'm sorry. If you were working, any of us would be fired. Not these people. It's a mistake. Oops. But these are people's lives, so that's another.
A question for both of you, and bringing it a little bit back to Silicon Valley. Eric, you've highlighted this Zuckerberg quote as one of the most quintessential of 2024. I think we accepted other people's views of some of the things that we were asserting that we were wrong or responsible for that I don't actually think we were. Kara, reflecting on your famous 2010 interview with Zuckerberg, whereas
Sweaty one?
Yep. Whereas visible discomfort and sweating raised concerns about Meta's data practices.
Yeah.
Do you see a connection between that moment and the sentiment in this quote? How do both of you interpret these insights into accountability and leadership in tech today?
Can you read that quote again? I just can't believe he said that, but good.
I think we accepted other people's views of some of the things that they were asserting that we were doing wrong or were responsible for that I don't actually think we were.
Oh my God, the world's tiniest violin is playing right now for this guy. We are a victim. This is so typical of him. Like, we accepted. Like, he controls the company, everybody. First of all, he's old now. So let's stop with this. He's a young wunderkind. He's, I think, over 40.
Have you heard from Cheryl about it?
No, but I'm not surprised. You know, remember that Scarlett Johansson thing on SNL, Complicit? Not that quote. I think he's talking about her. He's talking about, he's utterly, subtweeting her. He pretends he's a victim. I didn't do it. This man cannot be fired. His children cannot be fired. He controls this company. He can do whatever he wants. We let ourselves be. That is such bullshit. I'm just sorry, just at the very step of it. It's not true. He could do whatever he wants. Either he didn't have the guts or he was convinced into it by Cheryl. Like, I don't even understand that. He's done that before when he appeared here at Congress, which was really one of the most disturbing situations where they had the parents of people who had been hurt on Facebook, and they were holding up pictures of their kids. It was terrible. It was terrible to watch. And different things, bullying, all kinds of things. And even if you don't want to blame Facebook for everything, it's part of the situation. The lack of regulation, the lack of transparency is part of the problem we're seeing with kids. And I have 4 kids, so I pay a lot of attention to this. And so it was Josh Hawley. Was it Josh Hawley? One of them, Cotton or Hawley, which
I'm not
they look
sure.
alike. I can't tell the difference. It was Hawley, and he said, Mr. Zuckerberg, turn around and apologize to these. Remember that? Like, turn around and apologize. First of all, may I just say, I wonder who in the room had an ability to legislate any of this. Perhaps Josh Hawley. Perhaps he should apologize to these families for not doing anything, but he won't, of course. That said, it was a self-righteous bullshit thing to ask Mark to do. Mark turns around and he says, I'm sorry for what was done to you. Think about that. Nothing to do with me. I'm sorry something happened to you on the way on Facebook, on the way that is not my fault. And so this is very typical of him. He made those decisions. If he didn't like them, just say, I don't like him. What I really want to do is an MMA fighter. I want to take human growth hormone and I want to like punch things. Just say it, like, and take responsibility for it. That's my feeling.
I mean, a couple points. I mean, I agree with what Kara's saying, but
The MMA? Or the
no,
human growth hormone?
I think Mark Zuckerberg is sort of singular, not necessarily representative of how, the other tech CEOs have their own problems, but I do think the Facebook situation is unique. I think he's someone who sort of has very clearly been like, I'll cozy up to the administration in power and sort of have this like big swing in sort of like what the attitude at Facebook is going to be, all the way up to the like who's running policy. It's a very pragmatic or cynical, depending how you see it, sort of approach to government, where it's like, yeah, I mean, the way we're going to be responsive to democracy is we're really going to capitulate to whatever government they elect. And so that's been the mood. I mean, I'd also say that sort of in the big picture, I feel like the fact that Facebook and its products are a major way that the United States and the world interacts with the tech industry, and a lot of people, I think, regret the time they spend on those products, has been very bad for the tech industry's reputation. You know what I mean? Like, I do think, if you think about Amazon or Google, those are companies delivering something people generally feel really good about using, even if they might have ethical questions about different pieces of their strategy or whatever. Whereas I do think Facebook's product being something that people in both parties sort of tend to regret their interactions from, I think that's just created a really bad brand for the tech industry. And so I think both on a product level, which is where Silicon Valley actually has most of its influence, and sort of his waffling sort of principles, Mark Zuckerberg has not been very good for Silicon Valley's reputation.
He was correctly. The switching is incredible. I called him a sad weather vane, which perhaps isn't kind, but
You're a little more colorful than I am on these.
But literally, I feel like if Kamala Harris won, he would be asking us to call him they, them,
Sure.
and listening to Charlie XCX.
Right.
That's what he do. That's what he do. Like whatever's good for shareholders, he do. Seriously. And so that means that someone without values is in charge of, at some points, in some cases, 70% of news distribution happens on his platforms. This is the guy, the sad, sorry, oh, something was done with me guy. He has to take responsibility for what he made. And if he doesn't like criticism, too bad. Like, he gets to be a billionaire. He gets to run one of the most important communications platforms in history. Honestly, I just don't, but by the way, did you see that poll about him? That was interesting. So they just did a poll, you know, since he's sort of bulked up and wearing chains and that the whole thing's going on. I like it. I'm sorry, I do, compared to what was going on before. But I'm good with, I like when people express themselves, even if I don't like the expression. There was a poll just yesterday, one of those, there was a new post, I think it's a post-Ipsos poll, but it's the one that was saying nobody likes Elon either, but nobody really likes Zuckerberg.
Right.
Like, it's amazing. Like, Republicans like Elon and Democrats don't. Less and less people are liking Elon, but he had pretty good, with the Republicans at least, terrible with Democrats. Mark was like, all the Republicans don't like him, all the Democrats don't like him. I felt bad. I was like, oh, you're trying so hard to look cool, but it's not working. Did you see Jimmy, was it Jimmy Kimmel? He looks like a Chechen Molly dealer. I like comedy. I interview comics all the time. Sorry.
That was awesome. Well, we'll kind of focus it to social media along that same vein. You know, we've seen venture capital shift from quiet deals to now full-on media operations, right?
Yeah.
How much does media presence really matter for VCs?
I think Eric, you should subscribe to
sort
Eric.
of strategy.
I think you should subscribe.
I mean, you know, we've gone through the different phases of go direct. I mean, I think clearly, you know, a lot of VCs get their deal flow from having a podcast or having a channel. So I think that remains really important, is only going to continue to be more important. I think the media is going to be less influential in building people's brands. I just think the more that, honestly, like the best version in some ways of your positive presentation of the world does come from you. And so that leaves the media to provide sort of what's being left, which is often sort of the investigative, critical sort of commentary. And so I think that cycle just naturally means that if you're trying to build sort of this positive brand, a lot of the best channels are going to be going direct and communicating for yourself, or finding. Also, the other piece of it where I'm sort of a little bit in this world is that VCs really want to talk to founders. Like, that's their constituency. And, you know, so something like Newcomer, I'm very focused on VCs and startup founders. So I might be more critical than, I don't know, Harry Stebbings or something, but I'm still reaching the audience they care about, where a lot of the media that they've come to resent just has a different audience, is talking to different people. And so strategically, I think venture capitalists are just being much more clear-eyed that if they want to reach founders, they either need to build their own channels to founders or communicate in places where founders are paying attention. And
I
so that's
think
going to
founders know that that's like PR. That's what that is. It is PR. When they remember they started Future, was that Indra?
Yeah, that failed. Yeah.
That failed. They actually came to me. I was running
But All In, I believe, is an extremely popular podcast.
We're still 3 times bigger, even
Yeah,
though they pretend we're not. But fine, but whatever. They have their thing, 100%. But that's not precisely the same thing. That's a bunch of guys chewing the fat kind of stuff.
But that, right. Authentic media is ultimately more successful than if they're just trying to sort of
they tried to do this thing
book.
called Future, where and one of them there at the firm.
You're talking about Andreessen Horowitz's effort to build a media company that failed almost immediately.
Immediately. Well, it took a while, a lot of money, which felt good.
Well, they hyped it up, but then they launched. It felt like they didn't have day 2 stories. They had sort of their initial.
Right. So they started it, and one of them, of course, because they're so arrogant, called me and said, "We're going to beat you at your own game." And I said, 1, media is hard.
Right.
2, media is a shitty business, so good luck.
Right.
What? How great you've gotten us. Like, we're so gotten by you. And it failed, of course, because they were uninteresting, right? I think actually there's a huge space for media in this, because I think people do want authentic voices. They do want something like that. I think founders do get the right story from people like you, or Casey Newton, or stuff like that, as they really enjoy really good reporting that's fair, or Oliver Darcy in media. Like,
Right, but it needs to be more focused on the concerns of the actual industry.
that's whoever your
versus this
audience.
Gen Pop.
Well, yes,
Right.
whoever your audience happens to be. But I think using your stuff, I think people really do like that better, and it's a real opportunity to do it. And like something like Pivot is that kind of thing. Now, you either like us or you don't, but you know it's genuine, right? And that's good. That's a really good thing. And so people tend to trust you, and you build these trusted audiences of what are essentially fans, is what it is, the fan base. And one of the things I found really interesting is when Scott Galloway and I had a book this year, we were on the bestseller list for a long time. And at every event I did, and I did an unusual thing. I had people in the book interview me, so I made it a media event. Everyone was a podcast fan. It was really interesting. That's why we stayed on those bestsellers. So you have to build a multifaceted relationship with your audience, whether it's live events, whether it's newsletters, whether it's podcasts, and you have to treat them not like you're talking down to them, but that you're a fan, that they are fans, and they.
Well, I'm curious. You know, I feel like I've started saying I'd rather be a creator that exceeds expectations than a journalist that disappoints. Like, I feel like, obviously I care about my reputation for honesty, but I feel like a creator, I sort of have to earn that in public, show my work, explain. I mean, you do a lot of the same things where it's like, I talked to this person 10 years ago, and that's how I have the context, have this perspective. Yeah, I guess I'm more openly sort of embracing the creator moniker.
Yeah,
do you see
call
yourself
it whatever,
that way?
You can call it whatever you want. I mean, but I think what it has to be is we're very transparent in what we're doing. And I think it's really, it's, whether it's on the left or the right, what succeeds is the same version, whatever the particular thing you're aiming at your audience. If you're someone like Megyn Kelly, you want to scream at people all the time. That's her brand right now, and hate women, essentially. And that works. I'm sorry, it does. She's very popular. And what's really interesting to watch is that the right does it a lot better than the left. And I'm thinking about why that is.
Right.
I think the right reinforces themselves and each other, and the left sort of hangs, or the center left, I would say, hangs out and doesn't join in. And what's really interesting when you look at lists right now of news commentary, the top 10 we're always at 4. Pivot is always at 4. Globally, we're 4. Everybody else is right, really right. It's Mark Levin, Dan Bongino, Megyn Kelly, that whole gang, and we're sitting there like this, and it's interesting that there should be an ecosystem among the center left that doesn't exist, which I'm trying to establish, getting people to do training.
Well, it's always been hard. Air America. Be angry at this is a very compelling way journalists get people's attention, and if you think of the right-wing media as very anger-oriented, as I do, then that's a very animating way to keep an audience.
But I think people are desperate for information, and I think that's why, there's 3 things you have to be in this media landscape right now. One is useful. It has to be useful. Eric's stuff is useful. I think our stuff is useful. I can use it in my work. 2, you have to be insightful / entertaining / funny. One of these things. You have to make people feel good listening to it. I have so many people coming up to me. We have such an odd demographic. It's very young and very all over the place. And I was in the elevator of my thing the other day, and a woman came up to me and she said, "You're my friend, but I'm not yours." And I was like, I need to get out of this elevator. I think I can take her. The same thing happened. It was in New York, and one of these big giant, I don't know, whatever the big cars, the limousines that the rich people drive in all the time. It did a 180 on the street in front of me. And I was like, oh, finally, Elon's coming to get me. This is it. This is the moment that I end up in, dead, essentially. And this guy jumps out, and he goes, "Kara Swisher." And I'm like, yes, you can take me away. It's fine. Tell my children I love them. And he goes, "I love you and Scott. Scott's such an asshole." And I was like, okay. And he goes, "I'm a firefighter from Queens who was driving on the side." So it was a totally different demo. He enjoyed it, right? So that's the second thing, insightful. They love the relationship. And the key thing for that was you can't get it anywhere else. And that's how you stop from being taken by other things, taken by social media. You can't get what Eric provides. You can't get what Casey provides. You cannot get Scott and Kara anywhere else. So, and that's critically important. I think we have huge opportunities because of that, because of the content, because of the ability to reach people. You just have to be entrepreneurial now in a way that reporters never were. You were, remember, when we talked, when you were going to do it. What did I say?
I have tried to embody lots of things of your career, certainly.
What did I tell you?
Yeah, I mean,
Fuck out of there.
I feel like I'm shocked that more reporters don't go independent.
They're not talented.
That's mean, but I do think there is like a degree that
What does that
I
mean? It's
saw that I
accurate.
was driving economic value to Bloomberg. Like
Yes,
the scoops
exactly.
I had, I'm like, these make sense. Like I see
Yeah.
why somebody would pay for these. And so then I went independent. It's like I just published Lightspeed's returns. Like that's valuable
Yeah.
to people. So I know that some percentage of the stories I'm doing, there's real economic value, makes sense to subscribe. If anything, I'm not capturing enough of what I think the value is to the people using it. And so yeah, there are, I think, a big media organization, inevitably, you have these sort of power law situations where your top reporters driving a lot of value to your subscription, and
Have you
a lot of
regretted
others
doing
aren't.
it? Have you regretted?
No, I love being independent. I couldn't imagine ever sort of
I know,
going
right?
back to
Did I
having
tell you?
a boss. Yeah, I think
We
the
were
other,
bad employees. That's the problem for us.
I mean, the advantage I have
He was
covering
nice.
I'm a good employee. I don't know what you're talking about, but
Casey's a bad employee.
I was a diva, I guess, but I feel like covering startups and venture capital is obviously a great. I feel like I can't go out and be like, every media needs to learn from what I'm doing. It's like, to me, I get to write about a really rich industry. It's like it could be oil and gas, and I get to write about an industry that is super culturally relevant in setting where the culture is going. So I really get it sort of in both directions, where there's money, so I can make money, and there's cultural relevance, so it's satisfying to write. And so I don't really know how much what I'm doing is like a model for
You could do it
everybody
for
else.
almost anything. One of the things that's important to keep in mind is his stuff. The smart VCs like it. Smart technologists, smart people like it when you give them a hard time because
Right.
they're adults and they can take good criticism from people who've done reporting, who've done insight, who have experience. So I'm sure he has lots of fans among them. The only people that don't like him, as I wrote in your thing, are the delicate fucking flowers who literally cannot take one bit of criticism because they stopped growing at, 11 years old emotionally. And so literally they get licked up and down all day and therefore can't take any kind of legitimate criticism they might get from someone like that. But I suspect you have a lot of fans among VCs.
This great marketing. Anybody who's a student who wants to subscribe, email eric@newcomer.co. I'll give you a free year.
See, you write him directly. That's
Right?
the
Yeah,
other thing.
I mean, I do think that's the creator thing. You have to maintain your own audience. Yeah.
Eric and Kara, I want to focus on your kind of independent journalist career. You've both been very transparent about the financial performance of your ventures.
Yes.
Eric, you've shared that Newcomer has over 100,000 free subscribers and achieved a net income of over 700,000 on 1.6 million in revenue in 2023.
We've had more than 2 million in revenue and more than 1 million in profit last year.
Well done.
Congratulations. Kara,
And my audience loves me making money. It's
Yeah.
great,
Wouldn't they? You worked hard. You made that cake. They ate it, and it's
still
delicious.
growing, still building. Yeah.
Kara, your recent deal with Fox involves a convertible note in the $20 million range, or about 2.5 million per year.
More, but okay. That's just one.
When you started, did you ever imagine that independent journalism could become this lucrative? And do either of you think this level of independent success threatens traditional media outlets?
No. I mean, yes and no, I guess. No, I love it. I've always wanted to be independent. As I said, I see the value I create, and it kind of, like, I remember thinking, why does Rupert Murdoch own my Gates and Jobs interview? I did that. Me and Walt did that. We created it. We did everything. Why is that old man, who I don't like very much, getting the money? So I think one of the things that I think most people who are entrepreneurial are like, is I made it, and if I fail, I fail. If I don't, I don't, kind of thing. And I think most entrepreneurs really understand or accept this as part of the equation. Now, luckily, I've not had problems. We've made money on everything we've done. And we started with the All Things D conference, which was making a lot of money. And that time, the journal didn't believe in us in any way. And so they struck a deal where they gave us a third of the profit. And we had control over the revenue and the spending. Well, they were not happy, but what we asked for initially was a raise, and I forget, I was making $125,000, and they wouldn't give me a raise. They're like, no, you can't have a raise. Everybody. I remember Karen House saying that. She's like, I was like, I'm making you millions of dollars. I think I should get a piece of that. And she's like, well, it's part of your job. I'm like, is it? It's not, because what other reporters are doing this, making actual money for your rapidly declining revenue base, essentially. And so we made a lot of money at both the Code and the All Things D conferences. And so one of the people were like, we should have given you the raise, because they ended up giving us millions of dollars every year because that thing made so much money. And I think it's really great to be able to create things whole and then benefit from them, and then figure out what you want to spend and invest in and what you don't. And that's really kind of fun. And I think if one of the things Scott and I are working at our new deal right now, which is going to be great for us, but it's also because we are making money for the people we're in partnership with. So why should anybody be mad? We don't want guarantees, because there's a whole big thing in podcasting now around guarantees. That means I don't have to work anymore for the money. And if you lose money, so what? That's a terrible relationship. And so everything we do either makes money or doesn't, and we all know how much it is, and then we figure out what the only argument is what the split is, what they contributed. Mm-hmm. And so that's all you have to do. I have to look at someone like Jim Bankoff. I'm like, what have you done for me? I don't think that's worth 40%. I think that's worth 20%. And then you have that argument. And so
you need to go real independent.
What?
I feel like, I've built my business off the cash flows of the business, don't really have partners, have gone really from like full in a company to like fully outside. And it's nice, obviously we care about what our sponsors
You have advertising?
think. Yeah, we have, event sponsorship is the main revenue stream. And then we do some newsletter. And
I don't want to sell advertising. I'll let someone else do it.
Yeah, I have people that do,
Right.
I don't personally.
I don't want to talk to them.
Yeah, I like the company building thing. I think the other thing, writing about startups, I think my audience, and I sort of underestimated this in the beginning. I knew that they felt like, oh, it's cool to see Eric build, then he'll have more empathy for us. And I think it took a couple years to be like, oh yeah, I do sort of understand what it is to be a startup founder a little bit more. It's like you have employees, you're a manager, and yeah, so I do think it's hard to run a company and to keep reporting and everything, but I do think there's value to the actual product I output, that I'm doing some version of the thing.
Or you have an idea and you can do it. That's the exciting thing. Like, you have an idea and then you just do it, and you don't have to wait for permission.
Right.
And one of the things I said, I was at the Times doing I went over there because I had some goals there in terms of getting people to pay attention to what tech was up to. Because my first piece was about the weaponization. I think I called tech people the digital arms dealers of the internet age, essentially. I wanted that in the New York Times at the time. But when I left, they were like, it's the New York Times. And I said, great. And they're like, but I'll make 10 times more doing what I'm doing. And they're like, but it's the New York Times. I go, 10 times. I have 4 kids. 10 times is better than 1 time.
Right.
It was a weird discussion. And one of the things I think that people like to do is you can take an idea and bring it to fruition very quickly. And you can also, I think the expression I use is, I don't like mama telling me what to do.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be told what to do. And that believing in yourself is really critical. And believing that you have a product. And one thing that Eric has done really well is he's focused in on a sector. Now, you could then go outwards from there.
I could, but I'm very focused on
You are,
startups and
but you
venture
could
capital.
if you
I think if I want to make more money, it's events in different
AI.
startups and VC verticals. It's data, but I'm laser focused on startups.
But you could if you wanted to, if you had some good idea,
Yeah.
like merch, for example. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. I think other revenue streams in startups and venture capital, but staying in that area.
So that's really a fun part of it. And just for all of you, if you want to do something, you should. One of the great things about Silicon Valley is just do it. Like, we are so privileged in this country, despite all the problems we're having right now, to be able to get out and do what we want to do. And I think a lot of people are very very nervous to get out of line. They'll have to go work at, your bank or wherever you're going to go. You want to go to a safe place. To me, don't go to a safe place because you are safe to start with. Do something that you want to do. Now, if you're not entrepreneurial, don't do it. Stay at the bank. Stay at the big institution. But if you are, you should. There's no risk, really. There really isn't. Did you feel risky?
I mean,
I remember.
I started off at, I guess my sort of second job was the information, which didn't have a name when I joined. So there was early on a sense that I'm willing to take some risk. It helped that I was going into media. My other option was to go to the Philadelphia Inquirer, which was like, like dying at the time. So
I would have physically gotten in your way. If you...
Yeah. So, but yeah, I agree with the message that Silicon Valley is absolutely right that starting something, building something, you have so much more control, influence, upside, and that people, it's scary, but there should be much more of a sort of preference to joining a small company or starting something new than going to a big.
And two things. One is taking money. Be very careful about that. If you can fund it yourself, please do not take money. And one of the things I was really careful is I didn't take any VC money because eventually they'll fuck you. Like, that was my feeling, because they don't love media. It doesn't make that, they will.
It's funny that we both cover venture capital and don't want
We don't
VC
want their
money.
VC money because we know what they're up to.
Right.
Fine, it's great. Good, they have a good business model. I took it from money from media companies, and I wouldn't today. I wouldn't take money. I would not. I would either self-fund it or figure out a way to make money right away. And the other thing is be profitable. Be profitable. Like, that's critical. I know a lot of startups aren't profitable at the start, and they are allowed to get that leeway, but a media company has to be profitable from day one.
Eric, I'm going to direct a question to you on the state of VC. So you reported that in 2024, the top 30 venture funds like A16Z and General Catalyst raised 75% of all VC money, with only about 14% going to emerging managers. In this fundraising environment, what can emerging managers and smaller funds do to stay relevant, and how can they differentiate themselves against these mega funds?
Yeah, it's a crazy time. I think, a big theme, the boring business theme of the year is the rise of the mega fund. You see Andreessen Horowitz and General Catalyst and Lightspeed to different degrees pursue a sort of private equidification of venture capital. They're opening wealth managers. General Catalyst bought a hospital, like one of them could go public someday. So I do think that, that's sort of the juggernaut in venture. I think it,
Who'd go public? I'm just curious.
Andreessen has been very strategic, as they always are. Like, I think they opened an LP meeting at one point where we're not planning to go public. So I think they both like the, could they, while saying they won't. So I don't have any new reporting to think that they're about to go public. I think General Catalyst, they're calling themselves a company. I think their head of marketing is from Blackstone.
Warren
it is
Buffett.
very
kind of like
we're like a business. So, Anyway, to the specific, what do you do as an emerging manager? It's a hard time. I think the pendulum has definitely swung back to emerging managers who are leaving one of these mega funds. I think limited partners are sort of wary that they haven't gotten many distributions, and so they want somebody who is a little bit more of a professional investor than just super connected in Silicon Valley. So I do think that sort of class of emerging manager is doing a little better. I think you need to have a great thesis. Sarah Guo at Conviction, is deep on AI and is doing super well. I'm optimistic about Zoe Weinberg at Exante. There are these emerging managers where they have a strong thesis, they're going after something, and then at the end of the day, you've got to get great portfolio companies. That's the business, and there are a lot of funds that try to get me to cover them, and mostly what I'm doing is just looking through their portfolio companies and seeing, do you have something that's got traction that people are excited about right now? And it's a business of exits.
They're faster, right? Aren't they fat? The smaller ones are, I always think there's an opportunity. The big ones are fat and slow. They just are. They even though they can bring power to bear, they can't. They have much more bureaucracy.
But Andreessen's strategy right now, I had Martin Casado, one of their top general partners on stage at Cerebral Valley. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about AI, and I was like, how do you know which piece of it is going to be where the value accrues? And he was sort of like, why not just invest in all of it? It's sure, yes,
SoftBank approach.
Emerging managers can be sort of fast and have a sort of clear thesis, but it is hard to compete when, one of the top brands in venture is like, well, we'll have it all.
Well, some of the founders, though, are correct. They're a little more, it's like Hollywood in that way. It's either the studio or someone who's actually creative and interested.
Yeah, there are certainly founders who would prefer the attention of a small fund, but it's hard.
Kara, we have a question for you. Sure. You've witnessed Silicon Valley evolve over the years, and there's been talk of a so-called male gay mafia influencing the tech scene.
What? Who's talk?
Sam Altman,
Oh.
Peter Thiel,
Peter
Keith,
Thiel.
yeah.
What, that's 3. And the rest of them are straight, white men taking Ozempic. But go ahead. All right. We're getting their facelift.
How do you see LGBTQ networks shaping the culture, innovation, and leadership in Silicon Valley?
Not at all. Not even slightly. I don't think I've ever heard them talk about, I don't think Tim Cook has ever said the word gay to me, and he happens to be. I don't think that's a thing. I don't think that's a thing. I don't. I've never come across it. I don't think they just happened. It's kind of, they happen to be gay. It's one of the many things they are. But if I had to list the attributes of Sam Altman, gay would be far down on the list. He's aggressive. He can be manipulative. He's quite brilliant in a lot of ways. He's very charming. Like, that would not be something I think he thinks about. He's about to have a kid, which is great for him. But I don't think any. I don't think any. And Thiel, Thiel kept it to himself for the longest time, even though everybody knew about it. In fact, I think I had a good example in the book where he came out to Max Levchin in a car, and he goes, "I have something to tell you," and in a big dramatic way. And Max was like, Max is quite a geek kind of guy, and he goes, "You're gay," like that. And he goes, "Yes," and he goes, "I don't care." Like, and it was funny, he was worried about apparently investors from Saudi Arabia, I guess. I don't know. And apparently not now, but I don't think it has any. Do you?
I don't know.
Who's the third one? Who else?
Who?
I don't even. Keith. Oh, no. Keith is a straight white man, even though he's gay. I don't think that forms his thing at all, right?
No, I don't want to get into it.
Well, I'm a gay person, so I can say we've never had the discussion I actually had with Peter Thiel many years ago, which is now, the Journal lost it in one of their information changeovers, which they seem to do a lot over at the Wall Street Journal. They lose critical evidence in trials and things like that. He said, Peter Thiel started arguing with me about, this is before he had kids, and I had just had a kid, that gay people shouldn't have special rights. We had a big back and forth about it. And I said, no, it's equal rights. Like, I get to have kids, I get to not, I get to adopt children. And he goes, special rights. And I went, equal rights. I was like, equal rights to straight people. That's all, not more rights, not extra rights, like equal rights. And we had a back and forth about that for a while. And he probably has changed his opinion on that. Since he has kids, he would like to have them have equal rights. But otherwise, I think that's the only gay discussion I've had with anybody.
Well, unfortunately, we're running out of time, but I would love to close with kind of a summary question. In light of everything we've talked about today, Kara and Eric, what is your advice to the journalists that hope to follow in your footsteps one day and become the Newcomers and the Swishers of the world?
I think, at the end of the day, you have to find a beat that you can get scoops on. I think both, Kara was obviously a scoop machine. I think building a reputation for getting exclusive information and talking to the people who are actually making news, wherever your career goes, starting from the foundation of great reporting just gives you so much more expertise and more connections, and you're smarter. I feel like a lot of my strategy for being, having good takes these days is still, talk to people who are doing the thing and, what are their perspectives, and at least understand the range of perspectives before I'm trying to weigh in. So, yeah, I think do great reporting. I think find sort of an area you're passionate about. I think, obviously, be open to starting a newsletter and building your own brand. But at the end of the day, you want a job where you're getting novel reporting, and I think that's the most important thing.
I think he's right. It's number 1, 2, and 3 are reporting, and accurate reporting as best. Not everyone makes mistakes, but it's the accuracy of your reporting and your insight from that reporting. One of the things we did at All Things D, which I used to say to them, is that the reason it started was because at the Wall Street Journal, I wrote a story about Webvan, and I thought it was going to fail because of math. And they were like, can you get someone else to say that? And I was like, I'm saying it because I did all the reporting. And they wouldn't let me. And then they wanted a sentence in it called "to be sure." To be sure, some people think this will work. I'm like, they don't. And so that's why I got out of it. I didn't want to do that anymore. And I think if you do the reporting and you have enough expertise, you can come to a conclusion. It's sort of truthful, not neutral, that Christiane Amanpour says. So really use that reporting to then have analyzed insight, analysis from reporting, and I think that's critical. And I think the other thing is to be able to tolerate people you don't agree with. We have a lot of right-wing people on my podcast. We just, obviously, it's probably fun to listen to, but it's like you should be able to talk to as many people as possible. And I think that's critical. Talking to people. I talk to people and text people you'd be shocked who I text all day long. And I think it's really important and ask people directly what you're doing. I think it's just reporting, and then saying and saying it out loud. Obviously, I'm super shy, but say what, like, no, that's stupid, or no, like, don't be scared or worry about access. Access journalism is the cancer of journalism, and it's got to stop. It really does. And I think that's about it. The only thing I forgot, I insulted Keith. I'm also a straight white man, so it's fine. I think it's not an insult. So I think just doing that, be truthful, really work hard, and take a risk like Eric did, and I did many years ago too, because it really does pay off, and you have a lot more. Nobody is more risk averse than journalists, I have to say, often, and you shouldn't be, because your industry is in a free fall, but there's tons of opportunity because people are desperate to be informed and have insight. So,
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kara. Thank you, Eric.